Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Longstrider.
We're zooming. We're running all over the place because we got a Strider legs. This is a Artificer, Bard, Druid, Ranger, Wizard spell. First level, transmutation, cast time of an action, range touch, duration 1 hour. Notably, no concentration on that hour, so that's neat. You touch a creature, that target speed is increased by 10 until the spell ends. Nice. At higher levels, when you cast abilities in a second level slot or higher, you target one additional creature for each slot above first. Normally, I'm like, ignore upper level text, cast text, doesn't matter. And here, I'm like, ignore all of this text? I don't know. This is... Okay. I've played and DM'd this game a lot. Like a lot. Like, I have well over 100 hours into DMing. Probably in the 500 range. If I were to estimate, I don't know, just make numbers up. I've DM'd for a very, very, very long time. Two full 0 to 20 campaigns, many 0 to 10 campaigns. I have DM'd a lot. I've played one campaign to level 18. We didn't finish it out. We finished it out, but we didn't have the time to get to 20, so we started at 18. That's where Big Climactic Battle was. Beyond that, I've played like 5-ish levels worth of characters typically, because normally I'm the forever DM, right? So I got like here or there 3 or 4 month campaigns, sometimes a half-year campaign, sometimes I think my longest was a 1.5 year campaign. That was the 18 level ones. All that context to say I've never seen this spell cast.
Okay.
Not once. It's a first level spell in 6 classes. 5 classes I've never seen it cast.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Our opinions going forward are purely theoretical.
I was about to say then, I don't know why I haven't seen this cast.
Well,
It seems cheap and fine.
It's cheap, but I mean, it could be used effectively. It's just, it's not something. There's so many first level spells that all do different and amazing, fun things. There's your, outside of cantrips, this is your new toys. Like, it's Christmas morning. Am I gonna play with this or this, or am I gonna play with the Longstrider? 10-foot extra movement. That's I don't know. It's not super exciting. However, I'm willing to bet it could be effective in certain situations, especially like you're upcasting it on if you're facing off against a party of like things that are if speed matters. I think that extra 10 feet is gonna come into play potentially a lot.
Maybe.
Well, maybe at first. But anyway, also non-concentration. That's a big deal.
That's the big thing to me, right? Is whenever I look at this, the first thing in my brain goes, I'm never taking this a second level. It's just not happening. I'm not wasting one of my 3 or 4 first level spell slots that are my entire character on plus 10 feet. That's just not exciting. And not exciting is the first big sin that I think this spell actually commits. However, if I'm like an 8th level character, namely a druid, because druids can prepare this, I'm a lot more interested, because where like wizards and sorcerers get shield and you absorb elements and some other really cheap, powerful reaction stuff. A lot of upper tier characters don't necessarily have amazing places to put their first level spells to make them feel important. And this kind of is highlighted the brightest whenever you get to like 11th, 13th level, somewhere in the mid or up, the upper middle, lower high end tiers, right? Like we're getting into the spot where big splashy magical cards are coming a lot, where characters aren't regularly burning through all their spell slots for every long rest, right? And you just got like 2 first level spell slots lying around, like, I don't know what to do with these, doesn't really matter. Longstrider is a place to put them. And not only is it a place to put them, it's a place that can put them on. You can put them on some characters and have them be very effective. So, like putting them on a hasted character is great. You can double the doubled movement, right? So it's actually 20 feet there. It's the same putting on your rogues because they can kind of dash. So characters that are already going fast, this is a multiplier, or it's an additional boon that will then multiplicatively scale with all the other things that double or expand move speeds in fun ways.
That's how it works. Do not get it doubled and then add 10 feet, or
so this augments their speed, and whenever something says their speed is doubled, it counts whatever their augmented speed is. So for example, monks have a feature that gives them faster move speed. If you double a monk's speed, it includes the bonus 10 feet improvements they get as they level up. Longstrider, I believe, functions exactly the same. So if anything increases your speed, and then you have something that doubles that speed, all the additive additions become doubled.
Does it say it increases your speed or increases your base speed? These other
That's
spells.
I'll pull up. I'm pretty sure haste is something that does this. Tabaxi have a similar feature that doubles their speed. If it says doubles their base speed, it won't work.
Right.
Their target speed is doubled is the exact phrasing of the haste spell. And so that should work with this. I don't know if there's anything in the game that references base speed. There might be. In that case, it would only reference a character's like racial speed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if base speed is a term that exists anywhere. Largely doesn't matter. Well, it does matter because that's like the entirety of this text. This is all to say, yes, this will work the way you'd want it to with speed doubling effects, with extra dash actions, with anytime you want to be moving really, really fast. Longstrider is a really easy component to it. The other thing is like, I don't believe this stacks. So like, I don't think
with itself.
Correct. I don't know if you can. Yeah, I don't believe you can stack it on it. I think Jeremy Crawford had a Twitter thing about it. Yeah, the general rule of thumb, according to this Reddit user, is you can't be affected by a spell more than once at a time, so you can't have 2 instances of Longstrider on yourself at once going, so you know. Take that as you will. I believe the answer is you can't have multiple of them up at once. Still,
I don't think so.
This comes around to be, you can have a cheap way to get most of, if not the entire party, a flat +10 speed for spell slots you're not using. I think if you're especially if you're like a 3-player party or a 4-player party, 2 second level slots, the whole party's got +10 speed, or 2 first levels in a second level slot at 9th, 10th, 11th level. That's just kind of gonna feel like a free passive buff for you just existing. It's hour-long duration, means it's something you just slap on people at the beginning of a dungeon, and then any fight you get into, yeah, everyone's a little bit faster. Is that worth thinking or like putting on your sheet? As a prepared caster, maybe. On a druid, I could see this being someplace where spell slots. Again, we've been going through druid spells recently, and you come to the realization that a lot of your turns are spent maintaining big concentration effects and doing somewhat cheap, smaller things. This is a cheap, smaller thing that I'm not particularly bummed out to have on my sheet in those upper tier fights. This is something that you can, summon your summon beast and then give it a Longstrider. Now all of a sudden you have a 70-foot bird flying around that's able to easily get in and out of fights, dipping and slapping things around with its flybys. You can throw this on your, multi-attacking fake creature you summoned at 5th level or at 6th level or 7th level, whatever you get 4th level spell slots. And then it's able to engage really easily and run up and again smack things around relatively fast. Is it worth the slot is ultimately the question that this is going to always land on. So the less valuable the first level slots are, the better this spell gets comparatively, because the flat 10 is just going to passively always remain the same. Ultimately, I think this lands in a pretty it's fine. I never want to have to learn it, but if I don't have to learn it, sure.
Now that you mention it, I like the idea of this on summoning spells, because those are concentration for an hour. This is not concentration for an hour. Good times there,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can even a really easy way to have a bond with your animal or your summoned companion, right? Is cast a second level version of this. You get +10, they get +10, easy.
I like mechanics like this that they don't stack, but they do. Like with plant growth, for example.
Yep.
Where what was it? It cost you like 4 movements for one, but that's different than regular old difficult terrain. So those 2 things can stack on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, we mentioned, because it's a different mechanic to how your speed works, it can stack with something like haste. And I like when those sorts of things happen.
Yeah. I still land in a spot where I don't expect to ever see this cast. It is, even for its cost at all tiers of play, I have to wonder how much of an impact is +10 speed going to have on most encounters in most cardy compositions. And I think the answer to that question tends to be it's going to be pretty menial at most. I could see maybe pairing this for a specific kind of skirmish. I could see groups that are a dedicated rogue ranger and druid that aren't engaging in melee combat at all, right? Their fights look like more tactical XCOM style. You're hiding behind cover, you're taking shots, you're skirmishing around, no one wants to engage a target, getting a lot of value out of Longstrider. That's a really, really specific party composition. That's no one's playing a barbarian, no one's playing a paladin, no one's playing a fighter, no one's playing a monk. All of the melee options are off the table, and everyone kind of dedicates to playing the sort of stealthy ambuscade kind of combats. Then this is a little bit more interesting, I think. That's, again, not going to be the vast majority of tables, and for that reason, it's Like if the paladin engages once with this, if they could get engaged without the speed bump, this didn't matter. If they engage and get one, like they're able to get in range with the extra 10 feet the first round of combat because Longstrider existed, I'm like, yeah, they didn't have to take a range off, and they didn't have to like throw a lance or anything. I guess that's fine. But the vast majority of the time, then they're going to be engaged in combat. Things are going to be running to hit them. Combat gets a lot shrunken down as everything sort of coalesces in this big brawl in the middle of a map, and it's going to stop mattering then. So even in the upper tier fights where you're looking at like, relatively complex battle maps, relatively, at least hopefully more complex objectives, I still am having a hard time seeing this being worth the brain power to remember to do it. And that's where I'm like, it can't possibly be that good.
An hour. Like, so it could last multiple fights. Like you said before, if you're crawling through a dungeon, still, I think it's going to matter a whole lot, but it's so cheap and lasts for so long. I don't know. I feel like it could be worth it.
If you have,
something.
I think if you have like no competition for it, I think I agree. But this is worse than like absorb elements. This is worse than shield. This is worse than a lot of the other places you want to be putting your first level effects. I think this is worse than a lot of like the out of combat utility stuff. Like
I'm talking about upper levels where you just have so many first level spells to spare.
Sure.
Also, go ahead.
In that exact scenario, sure, right? Like it should be kind of free.
That's something where like you try it out. I think the biggest problem is you don't want it when it first becomes available because there's better stuff.
Yeah.
And then by the time you might want it, you forgot it existed.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And you like if you're ever looking through the prepared stuff, you're looking at what are the 4th and 3rd level spells I can prepare right now. And you'll be like, I've had the same 5 first level spells prepared. It's like I got Healing Word, I got Good Berry. I don't really care what else I'm preparing. Detect Magic's probably on that list. It doesn't matter. It's not the fun splashy stuff, it's the stuff I'm throwing off cheaply with spells, and I'm preparing the rest of them to be high level, more interesting decisions, right? And that's ultimately where like Longstriders, I'm not even thinking about this right now. Should I even consider it? And the answer is maybe.
I think if you do try this at a higher level, and I don't know, you sort of like cast it like, well, why not? Let's find out. And then when you're in a combat, you say, "Oh, I'm glad I had that extra 10 feet of movement. That made a big difference here." And I think through actual use, you might find some value in it.
I also then I'm thinking like, so it's something like Aid. Aid is immediately apparent how it benefited you, right? I think Aid is really similar to this in that it's a cheap passive effect that you go, I have a bunch of 2nd level spell slots lying around at 15th level. I'm just going to give out, 80 hit points worth of Aid before we go adventuring, right? I think it's a relatively similar effect where it's like, oh, we're going into a dungeon, great. Everyone take a Longstrider, or like, you get to the more dangerous part of the dungeon, everyone take a Longstrider, right? You will immediately see the 8 hit points go away. Everyone will immediately feel, okay, I had that 5 buffered hit points. They have gone down. If you're ever at like less, like 10 or between 0 and 10, you'll be like, okay, the 8 literally kept me alive. Longstrider, I think, is a lot harder to necessarily see its benefit, especially in a lot of fights where if your DM's planning around your speeds, corridors are built, maps are designed and thought of to include monsters going to engage you and you engaging those monsters, and not having the awkward downtime of I wait around because I'm out of position, or like, I hide behind the tree and wait for the ambush. That's all sort of thought about, at least should be and can be thought about in DM prep. This, if you just pull it out of your pocket out of nowhere and be like, okay, I'm going to Longstrider everyone, it might be hard to see this having any real impact. And that's where I'm like,
I think you're gonna could happen though that you it's the things you don't think about beforehand. Like for example, the monk's about to go down. The paladin, have just killed this bugbear or whatever. The monk,
I'm now 40. I'm within 40 feet of the monk now for lay on hands.
Lay on hands, or grab him and thunder step away or something, and whatever. It's those things like you don't predict.
Could be. I would hazard a guess that there'll be more instances where you will feel like this brought nothing new or changed anything to a lot of fights,
that's
right?
Very possible, yes.
And in those instances, right, you'll the next time you'll look at your prepared list and be like, oh, I still have Longstrider on here. Oh, I guess I'll just take that off, right? Like, I think this is going to more often than not end up having so meaningful an impact. It'll be an on then off kind of thing where it's, if you ever feel like you would want the flexibility of having a different option available to you, this is the first thing that comes off of your sheet. And again, we should note, this is exclusively in the realm of the druid class, right? If you're an artificer, a bard, a ranger, or actually artificers also might be prepared casters, but they have a harder time justifying this because they're half casters. If you're a bard or a wizard, even sticking this in your spell book, I have a hard time justifying, right? Like, even if you're a bard, certainly cannot take this. If you're a bard, you've got like 10 known spells to your name total. One of them isn't going to be Longstrider, right? And that's where I'm ultimately like, so on the upper tier druid that has the mental space to remember to put Longstrider on their sheet and give it a try, like 6 or 7 like full gameplay sessions in a row to see a little bit of extra juice out of it. I mean, if you're the kind of person that likes those tiny optimizations, this probably can be a benefit to your sheet. It'll probably be something that you can put spell slots into that you're otherwise not using. I think if you're one of the majority of players, you will never need to cast this, nor will it be like all that exciting when it happens.
All right. One last thing we should talk about is, like, there's another first level option that makes you fast. Expeditious Retreat.
This
How
guy's
do these
that's cute.
All right. Yeah, that's true. But the problem with that other one, though, is it only targets self, and it is concentration.
That's what kills it.
Yeah.
So one thing about Expedition Retreat, it's the bonus action. I think so where Longstrider is better in the upper tiers, Expedition Retreat is better in the lower tiers. It is a thing that I don't hate having on first level or second level wizards. If I'm like a melee, if I'm like intending to go Abigail or something, let's say my dwarf Abigail had Expedition Retreat on their sheet, and the intention was it's an engagement tool. It's something where I'm not actually retreating from anything. I may just be able to bonus action dash to get into a fight with my hammer and start hitting things. And that is where I'm like, I'm more into this. It immediately comes off the sheet the moment you hit like 3rd or 4th level and start concentrating on haste or concentrating on other more powerful concentration effects, right? Like having cunning action for a spell slot and 10-minute concentration is actually fine at first level. Like, it's not game breaking or anything. It's not powerful by any stretch, but I've seen it be fine. I think Longstrider, you use it at an entirely different time in the game, because I will always cast Expedition Retreat over Longstrider unless I'm like blessing, or this isn't even Expedition Retreat, isn't even a cleric spell, so like entangling with druid, right? That's where I would. Expedition Retreat's also not a druid spell, so it only overlaps with wizard. So I don't know. I think if you're a wizard, you can probably be fine without both.
All right. Well, we'll talk about Expedition Retreat in a future video. For now, I guess we've beaten Longstrider to death.
That's true.
You got a
If
rating?
you want to be the world's fastest wizard, both of them together, easy. My rating is probably going to be a 2, and I think that's generous. I think that there's enough. It's so harmless, right? It's a flat hour-long buff. It's a place to put first level spells if you want to be a little bit faster. If that ever matters, it's going to feel pretty good. I just have a hard time seeing it ever mattering. And ultimately, it's why I'm like, okay, if you're exactly an 11th level or 13th level druid, sure.
All right. You're giving it a 2 and feeling generous. I'm giving it a 2 and feeling a little guilty about it. I think it is non-concentration. It lasts for an hour. It has cool upcasting potential. I really feel bad about not giving this a 3.
It does say like all the right words minus the relevant, like what the spell does. All of the context around the spell's effect is like, I like all of this. Oh, and it just doesn't really do anything. All right,
Yes.
10-foot speed is.
All right. Well, I hope our commenters will have some opinions on this. If you do, leave them down in the comments below. And thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. That was Longstrider. Yeah, go like the stuff and subscribe to the stuff, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.